Hello and welcome to Rewind Reviews, a podcast, at least a TV podcast, a podcast about movies that we happen to remember from the past. Occasionally, movies we happen to remember from like a year ago, like when we did Dial of Destiny, but mostly movies from the past, and let's be honest, mostly movies from the late 90s, because that's the era we grew up through. And we asked the age-old question, does that hold up? And today's movie of choice, Merry Christmas, everyone, it's Christmas.
Yes. What is it? Is it like the 21st or something like that?
Yeah, let me pull that up, actually. I should know that. It is the 23rd. Oh, Christmas is 2 days away.
23rd. It's Christmas Eve.
It's Christmas Eve, everyone. That's a thing that I don't despise as a statement. Christmas Eve, everyone.
You're not in the UK. The UK has just got... we've been teetering for ages on when Halloween finishes, Christmas begins.
Yes.
Just absolute gone for it this year. Like, just, there's Christmas music playing. All the Christmas sandwiches are out, which is my favourite tradition. Yep. Like, outside of home traditions or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's full Christmas. Even though we're recording this on the 19th of November, it still feels fairly Christmassy.
Yeah, well, this is what's happened. This season's been really weird because I moved to Korea midway through us, recording this. So I think the last one we recorded in England was Face Off, but we recorded that months ago. And then About a Boy, Elf, and Miracle have been recorded while I've been in Korea, but really sporadically. We've been struggling to find recording time. So it's weird because when we were first staring down the barrel of these movies, it was like August. And we were like, this is way too early to do Christmas movies. But actually, what's happened is it's taken us so long to get to them that now we're recording one in late November, which actually doesn't feel too bad. That's close enough, right? It's not the worst. So this week we watched a movie that no one, as far as I can tell, no one seems to give two shits about on the face of this planet. It's amazing how little.
Apart from my wife, which is why I got chosen.
Yeah. Well, I was going to get to that, but it just seems one of those movies that has a really small, very dedicated fandom, a handful of people that love this movie to death, and then everyone else just seems to have not negative feelings towards it either. I should say, just it's a good movie. I enjoyed that. Sure, I saw that as a kid. It's fun. And I will clarify as well, we're not even talking about the original. We're not talking about the one from the 40s. We're talking about the 1994 one with Richard Attenborough? Right? Is that the right Attenborough? David Attenborough? Which of the Attenboroughs is it?
Yes. No, it's Richard Attenborough.
I should have trusted myself. The Attenborough that would have sat around the table with his brother and bragged about making a movie about dinosaurs, while the other one actually did documentaries. I'm sure there's a comedian that's done a bit on that. I feel like that's a thing. Anyway, it's the one with Matilda, which is how I knew it as a kid. So in terms of history with this movie, I don't have a lot, so we can breeze through at least my part of this pretty quickly. I remember being really excited for this movie. I have no idea why. Just something about it seemed like fun. I'd seen an advert for it somewhere. And then we didn't get to see it in the cinema, but I noticed when I thumbed through the Christmas TV guide that it was airing on a channel. I was living in Ireland at the time, on RTE, which is the Ireland's version of the BBC, basically. And I was really excited, and I was like, I'm watching that. And I can't believe it. This movie was only just in cinemas, and now it's on the TV. So this is 94, so I'm 6 or something, or 7, and I'm really excited. Tragic fact about me, the first thing I learned to read independently and in my own time was the TV guide. Genuinely true fact about me. So
I fucking loved the TV guide.
Oh, it's the best. Man. Especially the Christmas one. The Christmas TV guide used to be my favourite thing.
I used to buy two. I used to buy What's on TVs and Radio Times.
Yeah. I used to love that. And it's that song, it's the most wonderful time of the year. Whenever I hear that, I'm just thinking about TV guide time, man. TV guide time. Because it was like, what movies will I be able to capture on VHS for myself this year? Because what I would do is I would buy constantly with pocket money blank VHS tapes. And I had stacks of these things, and I would basically be just collecting movies. But I was getting them from TV. So the Christmas TV guide comes out. I'm looking at what movies are airing. Switch that thing into long play. Oh, you can record 3 movies on one VHS. Anyway,
Oh,
Quiet.
long play.
Quiet,
What a
everyone.
dream.
The old men are talking. Anyway, shut up, Grandpa. What's a VHS?
You remember the madness of putting? I mean, this is way too deep cut for potentially. Actually, you know what? No, given this movie's status, I assume anyone listening to this is either listens to every episode, in which case this is fine, or they really like Miracle on 34th Street, in which case this is probably hitting the right age spot as well. But do you remember the madness of putting a long play video in a short play player?
Oh yeah.
It would just have those squiggly lines and it would be unwatchable.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, you'd get a VHS tape, and in short play, you could record I can't remember the exact length, but it'd be on average 2 hours or something. But you could put it in long play mode. Some VHSs had the function for both, and it would do 6 hours of recording. But you then you can only play it in a player that was capable of playing long play tapes. So it was as Chris mentioned, the madness of putting a video that was essentially recorded at double speed through the slower function. It was a madness. It was a madness. But anyway, so I'm really excited about Miracle on 34th Street. But I don't have any cassettes at the time, or I can't. Maybe this is just a little bit before I had one in my own room, because eventually I got a VHS player in my room, which was my hub for making sure I recorded all this stuff. But I couldn't record it, and family plans, of course, while the movie was on. So I'm out of the house. I know the movie's airing. I keep begging my mum to take me home from wherever the fuck we are. I have no idea. I just remember being the movie I wanted to see in the cinemas is on TV. A miracle has happened. They're airing the movie. But so anyway, we get home with 20 minutes of the movie left. And I'm I don't care. I'm going to watch the last 20 minutes. I turn it on, and some black and white thing with no Matilda. Absolutely outrageous. It was the original. Of course it was. It wasn't the one I wanted to see. So that's my main memory of the movie. And then eventually seeing it and being very whelmed. Which is, just existed. It was fine. Even as a kid, I just remember being yeah, that was fine. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I just enjoyed it. It was good. And I'll be, I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but I don't think much has changed in my feelings for this film. But how about you, Chris? Have you got a big history with this one? Did you see it as a kid?
Yeah, well, before we do that, just to kind of back up the everyone seems a bit oh yeah, it exists. Mm-hmm. I thought I would just do a little experiment. So I Googled Christmas movie ranks, right? Mm-hmm. Ranked, and I clicked on the first 6 links. Now they are Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb, Time Out, Empire, Variety, and then Collins Street Bakery. Right? to which just a quick round of applause for whoever's doing Collins Street Bakery's SEO, because fair play to that bakery.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if I could be bothered, I'd play the sound of applause right now for them, but instead you just get sort of me clapping on my own leg like this.
Yeah, it's beautiful work, guys. Well done. So 89th on IMDb's. Doesn't appear. 89th on 89 on Rotten Tomatoes. Sorry, doesn't appear on IMDb, but the 1947 version does. Mm-hmm. Doesn't appear on Time Out, but the 1947 does. Mm-hmm. Empire has it at 17th, but it's the 1940. They've put both together, so the listing is for Miracle on 34th Street 47/94.
Which to be fair, I think is fair, because from what I can tell, these two movies are very similar. But yeah.
Yeah, same. Variety, it doesn't appear. And then its highest placement is on Collins Street Bakery's list, which has it at 9th.
9th. So.
Oh wait, no, it doesn't specify.
Which version?
It doesn't specify. I think it says 1947. So
there you go, it's the original.
So let's just quickly see what Collins Street Bakery put as number 1. Number 2 is Elf.
Yep.
Number 1 is White Christmas, according to Collins Street Bakery.
White Christmas.
Oh no, this list is
from 54.
I don't. Huh?
The 1954 movie.
Oh, yes, the 1954 movie. Look, I mean, your SEO is doing wonders, but this list. Let's just do a quick rundown, because This list is madness, right? So number 10, It's a Wonderful Life. Number 9, Miracle on 34th Street.
This is all wrong.
Number 8, Die Hard. Number 7, A Christmas Story. Number 6, Polar Express. Number 5, Home Alone. Number 4, Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas, which appears to be the Jim Carrey version. Number 3, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Number 2, Elf. Number 1, White Christmas. Wow. Yeah. Wow.
I mean, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation is beloved, but like, my God, just in general, like that list is a mess. I can't imagine putting anything above It's a Wonderful Life for a start, but White Christmas, the Bing Crosby movie. Like, look, okay, here's the thing, right? I've never seen that movie all the way through, right? I've literally like. I've seen clips of that movie, so maybe I am completely wrong. But I just think, don't we all understand culturally that like several of those movies are like the classics? I guess it's just one person's opinion. I shouldn't judge it too harshly, but that is quite surprising. That is a very surprising.
It's quite a list.
That is quite a list.
I imagine it's ranked so highly because loads of people have commented on it, being like, "What's going on here, guys?" But anyway, was something else I was going to say?
Well, actually, to be fair,
National Lampoon. Yeah,
that might be ranked highly because you were searching for Miracle on 34th Street, and that's the article that had it the highest.
Oh, what previously? Yeah, maybe that's fair. I just quickly, I want to do National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation at some point because I watched that movie as an adult and did not think it was that good. So
that's a really interesting point actually, because I only saw it as like a young teen. And I haven't seen it as an adult either, so that would be maybe we earmark that for a future year. Anyway, your history with the film. You saw it when you were young?
So my sister, my sister was a fan, and she had the VHS, and I remember it's one of the covers I really remember. It's Santa and Matilda smiling at each other.
It's worth noting that Matilda hadn't come out yet, and no way were we calling this the Matilda Miracle on 34th Street before Matilda came out. So I just think that's happened afterwards. Poor Mara Wilson, never going to escape Matilda.
Yes. Oh, she's so good in this movie.
She's great.
But anyway,
she's great.
It's amazing given the time period we do and the number of episodes we've done that this is our first movie with her, isn't it?
Yeah, because I also really want to cover... She did a movie called... I think it's called A Simple Wish, which young me adored, but I quickly became aware that it was probably a terrible movie, and I've never revisited it. So it's prime material for this channel, for this podcast. That was her as well, I believe. That was a good run. So she did Matilda in 96, and A Simple Wish was in 97. My God.
Yeah, and there's only one thing I've not really heard of. And it's a television film, so it probably doesn't really count. If you take out television film, she literally went Mrs. Doubtfire, Miracle on 34th Street, Matilda, A Simple Wish.
My God. And then she did that. I think anyway. Did she do that Madeline movie? No, she didn't. No, I don't think she did.
No, it doesn't look like that was her.
No, that was the year later. But anyway,
so carry
on.
So watched it as a kid, and as a kid, I sort of. My vague memory as a kid, and this will come back as a discussion point later, was sort of always getting into it, but I can't remember whether I found it a bit courtroom drama-y, which we'll talk about more later, because I think that is an interesting point about this movie, where it's got such a gentle charm that you are sort of like, maybe not quite this phrasing, but you are a bit like, who's this for? Because we'll talk more about that later. But in recent years, it's Jess's favorite Christmas movie. I love watching Christmas movies at Christmas. So we have watched it like pretty much every year for a long time. It's in that constant roster. And probably the most consistent, like we've talked about before. Some years, unfortunately, some stuff drops off. We try and watch Die Hard every year, but I think the only two that categorically are potentially watched every year is this and Click and Collect, the BBC television film.
Do you not watch the Santa Claus every year then?
But we do try, but there have been years. One, the year that we did it ridiculously early. I don't think Jess and I then rewatched it.
I think that still counts,
and two,
though, right? You'd only seen it a month or two early. That's true. I'd say that counts.
Yeah, maybe we have then. I feel like maybe there was one year where we only watched the first one, but again, you can argue that still counts because we did watch the first
that counts. You watch the sequels when you watch the Santa Claus? Oh, what fresh fresh hell is this?
Yeah, we do the trilogy, mate.
My God. All right, well,
not all in once.
I love that. That was
anyway,
you just. I didn't realize that the goalpost was. You're like, I don't know if we do it every year. Me thinking you just mean the Santa Claus, the good one, the movie, and then you had it. It turns out your requirements for hitting that are much higher than mine. I was like, you watch the movie? Yeah. You need to watch the whole trilogy, apparently.
Yeah, so you're right. Probably the movie we have done every year. I'd love to, should write it down really. But anyway, so yeah, I've watched this a bunch, and the theme of this series of Rewind reviews for me is someone else decide. So it felt very logical that we would do Jess's favorite Christmas movie, and Shall we? Well, I'm more intrigued because I watched, like I say, Gentle Charm is a good cover for me. Or do you want me to go first, or do you want to say what you thought? Kick us off.
Feel free.
Who do you want to kick off, Dan? Well, I think because it's I was sort of, when we put it on, I was oddly nervous because I was like, I've never really, sometimes, especially if you watch a movie a lot or you. Mm-hmm. I don't have the connection to it that Jess does. I'll say that from the off. There have been, I'm ashamed to say, there have been years where sort of I've been more on my phone maybe than watching the movie sometimes. But there are also years where it draws me in, and I was sort of like, so I do have affection for it. And I was like, oh God, sometimes on this podcast when we review things that we've got affection for, you feel a bit like uneasy and nervous when you're suddenly sitting down to watch it with more of a critical eye. And I think Gentle Charm sums it up really well. I think, well, there's a few things. So I think all the actors are brilliant. I think the performances are great. I think it's a really tight script in the sense of they embed the things they need to embed really well. And I think this is a movie where we're going spoilers fairly quickly. So for those that don't remember, Kohl's, a department store that is in financial trouble and potentially looking to be bought out by a much bigger, more kind of corporate-y store over the way. They get a new Santa who sort of turns their fortunes around by telling people to go shop at other places, which we'll come back to at some point as well. But then, for revenge, that other store sets up a scenario where he ends up getting arrested, and then the charges of violence get dropped. But it becomes about, is he Santa? Do we believe in Santa? And the case goes to court.
To clarify, the court case is for whether he is mentally unwell because he believes he's Santa.
Yes. Yeah.
So the outcome of the case would be, no, he can't possibly be Santa. So this man is mentally unwell, which would obviously be a court declaring Santa isn't real. Or do we accept that this man is Santa and that Santa is real, legally speaking, and therefore potentially disappoint millions of children? That's kind of the courtroom element of it. I just want to cover that with more clarity, because if you've never seen the movie, the sentence, the charges of assault were dropped, but they go to court anyway to see if he's Santa, seems mental. I mean, there's a leap that has to happen there.
They don't give it much more time in the movie. Certainly the telling saying that the charges have been dropped.
They don't.
But anyway,
you're right.
So I think things like the house, things like the money and the shots of the money early on to establish that, I think all of that stuff is woven in really nicely. There's one arguably big character relationship, which I think is a discussion point for people, and is often a discussion point for me and Jess. I noticed on this most recent watch a sort of minor other character thing. It's funny, because we ended up postponing recording and I've watched this twice. And the first time I watched it, I'd recently listened to a podcast. I can't remember what the podcast was, but they were talking about how writers and directors and filmmakers now will try and they use the term, they will try and cinema sins proof their movie. So they will try and look at their script or look at that movie and go, what are the holes that someone like Cinema Sins, Honest Trailers, etc. could poke at this movie? And I think one thing about this movie is, if you're looking at it in that context, it's fucking full of things. Like it's kind of mad. Like there's so many little things and some big things where you're just like, what? Like, were they what's going on with them? Why is he proposing? Have they been together? Are they together? Are they not? I've got a theory on that. We'll talk about it. But like the behavior, like Coles do this whole mad plan just because CJ Craig says that she's going to buy a toilet roll from Coles. Like there's so many things. It's like one of the most un-cinema sin proofed movies ever. But I keep going back to, I think it's got a really gentle charm. And that engages you, but it's also interesting because it clearly engaged Jess as a young child and my sister, but I also wouldn't be surprised if you showed this to a child that was too young and they got a bit bored, because the third act is quite literally a courtroom drama. Like a massive chunk of the film is kind of set in a courtroom. And I think there's the smaller character thing. The bigger character thing I was referring to is the relationship between the neighbour and the mum, which, you know, we'll no doubt get to. But I think a smaller character thing, because peek behind the curtain, before we recorded, Dan and I spoke for 10 seconds and he was like, something about the third act, but I can't pinpoint what it is. And I think part of it is, and I've never noticed this before, and I actually didn't notice it the first time I watched it for the 2 rewatches for this. But, sorry, I've probably gone deeper than overall thoughts. Apologies, Dan. But equally, I don't get the feeling you've necessarily got bucket loads of overall thoughts, so I assume that's okay.
No, yeah, but also, I mean, I cannot tell you how much hypocrisy would be on display if I at any point ever criticised you for speaking too long or going too deep, too quick. I mean, Christ. If anyone's listened to this podcast before and knows our usual dynamic, they're thinking, ooh, swap roles a bit today.
Yeah, the other one's talking. I think the turn from literally, can you remember the mum's character's name?
Is it Carol? I feel like it's Carol. I feel like, am I wrong?
Is it? Oh, shit. Just knocked my tea. Hold on.
I finished my tea too quick. Now I'm out of tea.
Oh, mate.
I know, it's tragic.
So we have swapped roles.
Oh, this is Dory. Dory Walker. For some reason it was Carol. I don't know where I got Carol from.
You know what it is? I think she's referred to as Miss Walker.
Oh my God. Okay, it turns out, right, so Chris, tea update. I didn't realise this, but Nadia's in the house. She was not in the house when I started recording the podcast, and because of my headphones and noise cancelling, I did not hear her come in. And when I just joked that I finished my tea and I'm sad, she clearly heard that from the other room, came in and has taken my teacup. So, tea is on the way, everyone.
Beautiful.
My desperate cry for tea was heard by the universe.
Yeah, nice.
I finished it too quick.
I think Dory's flip from literally talking to her co-worker about how they're hinging all their hopes on an unstable older gentleman to, do you not believe in Santa? Coles needs to make a stand, isn't really justified. Like, on this second rewatch, I really noticed, like, well, hold on a minute. Like, how has she gone from doubting him herself to then trying to push Coles? Because you could argue, well, just because she's pushing Coles to make a stand, that's more about, you know, there is the scene where she's like, he shouldn't be alone. He's not, he's been a victim here because she knows he's been set up. Like, we get that. But it still feels like quite a leap that she would push for that. And then they still try and do a does she believe or doesn't she storyline. And I think maybe that's a big part of it as well. Like, a lot of that third act hinges on our heroes believing and they sort of flit a bit back and forth with her.
I think there's truth to that, but can I present a theory about this whole movie that I think makes a lot of that work better? I think they all know he's not really Santa. My personal view of this movie, and this is personal, and you may read the movie differently. The movie is, I think, opaque on purpose, but I think it's opaque on purpose for a different reason than maybe people think. It's not trying to be ambiguous because it wants to be ambiguous. It's trying to be ambiguous so from a child watching this movie, they can think it's a movie about Santa being real and adults not believing in him, and it being about being convinced Santa is real. As an adult watching the movie, what I take away from it is everyone in this movie that is an adult knows he is not Santa, including him. But it's not about that. It's about adults learning to maintain that belief and that childhood for their children. She doesn't learn to believe in Santa. She sees what good he's doing for her daughter and begins to understand why a little bit of magic is good for her child. That's how I see this.
That's such a fascinating read, because there is nothing to suggest, and like you said, it's your read. There's no fucking right or wrong. But excuse my language. But there's nothing to suggest that logic is wrong. And yet my read of the movie has always been that he's actually Santa, even though there's no magic. He doesn't do you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing. That's fascinating.
And
I've never ever thought of it from the perspective that maybe he isn't Santa.
Yeah, he's not Santa. I genuinely don't believe he's Santa. I think the movie is actually pretty explicit about it. In my opinion, again, my personal opinion, I think it just does it in a way that is so that the adults in the room know that's what the movie is about, and the kids read it the way you read it, which is that he's real, and you can't put Santa in prison for being crazy. He's Santa. My reading of the movie, though, is that because there's a really great exchange between Chris and the husband, Dylan McDermott's character, Brian Bedford, the neighbor, whatever, the lawyer, where they're talking about bringing a smile to those things. And there's just this knowing, the way the dialogue is written, it's one of the few times in the movie the dialogue isn't pretty stilted and awkward. But they have this really nice exchange at one point in the movie where it, to me, reads as, well, they both know he's not, but they can't. I think it's maybe in the jail cell or just after he's been in jail, and he's talking to him about, like, why did you answer the questions this way? Because Dylan McDermott's character is like, yeah, you obviously don't think you're Santa. You're a sensible human being. You've been keeping it up for the children. Why would you say I'm Santa when being interviewed by a psychologist? They're going to think you're crazy. And he says he can't bring himself to... The way he phrases it, it's so perfect. Chris's response, as in Mr. Chris Kringle, Richard Attenborough's character, is referencing that magic, that belief. And I read it completely as everyone in this movie that's an adult knows full well he's not Santa, including him. And it is just a question of, do we expose this to children through this situation or not? And the dilemma at the end of the movie, by my reading, is how do we... Are we willing to ruin the belief of all these children to commit a man to prison when all he's really doing, and I think we all know all he's doing, is maintaining this so not to spoil it for kids? That's such a fascinating dilemma.
What about then? And this is just for the purpose of discussion, because, like you say, I think it has to be a deliberate choice that they've left it. You know,
yeah, of course,
that it could be either way.
Mm-hmm.
But so, what about the facts he knows about the other prosecutor's house and the fact that the fantasy house is theirs by the end of the movie?
Well, the fantasy house is theirs is perfectly explained in the movie. It's on the market, yeah. and that is just a practical, physical thing that happens. Like the house is on the market. He nudges them at it. He knows she's getting the bonus. I mean, look, improbable, yes. Impossible, No, not at all. Definitely not magic. And in terms of the prosecutor's house, what does he say? He says, "Have you fixed the old antenna? It tore my pants last time." Everyone has an antenna on their house. Who doesn't have an antenna on their house?
And it's fascinating. And it's just the notion that he's a magician, not Santa.
Well, I wouldn't even say he's a magician. I just think he's a man that believes in what the idea of Santa brings to children so strongly. I mean, how was he introduced in the movie? Not flying in on reindeer. No, he meets a guy playing Santa that he doesn't believe is up to snuff and believes will damage children's perception of the magic of Christmas and Santa. Because the guys are drunk. And he's got his builder's behind showing. And he's, clearly not up to the task, right? It's not about, I'm here to prove Santa's real. It's, don't ruin this for the kids. And that is his thing the entire movie. And then the other thing people will talk about, I guess, that it seems magical is, he knows these languages. He knows, he's a learned man. They say that in the movie. He's just a really smart guy. He knows a lot of languages. He's like a scholar or something. I don't know. I can't tell you how I felt about this movie as a kid, but on this viewing, which is my first viewing in several years, I will make it very clear. But that was my entire read of it, top to bottom. That's all I saw it as. So that when the end of the movie comes, it's not about is he Santa. Again, to me, everyone knows that. The question is, can that judge ruin Christmas for a bunch of kids or not? Or can he find a way out of it? They even say, they actually phrase it that way. How do you get out of this? It's so knowing. They're all aware. They know. They all know. No one doesn't know, in my opinion, except for Mara Wilson, who becomes a believer. But so the question is, right, if you think this movie is about he's really Santa, I absolutely accept that there's a beat missing or there's an issue with the character for Elizabeth Perkins, because we definitely don't do enough to make her believe Santa is real. But I do think we do enough to convince her how much Santa means to her daughter as an idea and millions of children. That they definitely do. So if you read the movie the way I read the movie, that character issue isn't a character issue, in my opinion.
Yeah, especially because the scene in between that I missed out because it wasn't necessarily... I didn't see it as relevant to what I was saying, but it is relevant to what you're saying, right. Is the news reporting about Kris Kringle and Matilda's face. We should look up the character's name, but Matilda's face
Susan?
looking all sad and her seeing Susan and Dory. She must just be pretty much exclusively referred to as Mrs. Walker, but anyway,
I think so.
Dory looking at her, looking like concerned and sad, which like for your read. Makes sense. I don't know why. It just makes me wish this movie was more part, because I think this is a great, is Die Hard a Christmas movie? This could be a big discussion point for this movie, but it's just not. It's not penetrated culture in that way. I think that is a fascinating discussion and really, interesting way of looking at it.
But I think this leans into my overall thought, and I know we're sort of doing this in a bit of a higgledy-piggledy order this week, but that's fine. We'll just do what we do. But look, I think one of the things I will compliment this movie on the most is that fine line that it is walking between the magic of Christmas and a charming old man who's committed to maintaining the idea of Santa with a sort of wink to the adults in the room. Because what a remarkable feat for any script to feel like magic and feel like Christmas and feel like he's really Santa with those little sleights of hand that seem like they're confirming he's Santa when you think about it and you go, oh, none of those do that. None of those do that. Improbable things like the house, which is one of my biggest criticisms with the ending of the movie. I don't like the house thing. I think her getting a dad, a brother on the way is more than enough. But they're doing the ending from the original movie. Although the original movie, if memory serves, makes more sense of how they do the house. But anyway, it doesn't matter. My point is, the way this movie walks the line between magic of Christmas, so when children watch it, that's the read they get, is while anyone wants to be more discerning about the film, maybe analyze it a bit more, can see the other way around. I think that's incredible. The original movie did this too, so I'm obviously giving credit to all involved writers here, from John Hughes through to I think it's George Seaton was the original writer. I have to double check that. I think they're all credited, but I think it's George Seaton, John Hughes, I think, are the two lead writers that are credited on this movie. I'll double check that in a minute. But my point is, from a script writing perspective, it is a remarkable film on that front. It does have a huge amount of charm to it. It is very funny. I do have inexplicable issues with the third act. I feel like the movie loses all momentum, but I don't understand how. Is it just that we suddenly lock ourselves into a courtroom? Maybe. I don't think the solution to the courtroom thing is particularly satisfying. That's a part of it for me. I don't think that whole one nation under God, whatever it is, the bill thing, I don't think that works at all. I just don't think that, like, what a ridiculous plan. And like to circle, one nation under God, or if it says on the $1 note, and hope that the judge will not only see that that's been circled, but understand what he's implying by doing that. That is a hell of a leap. But also, I don't know why they changed it, because I looked up the original movie's ending. Do you want to know how the original movie ended, Chris? For the courtroom stuff?
Yeah, go. Tell me. Yeah.
A random postal clerk gets a letter addressed to Santa, something he bemoans. They get lots of them every year, and technically a letter that gets delivered through US Post that doesn't have an address on it goes into a special storage in case it's tried to be retrieved at a later date, or they can figure it out at a later time. And obviously kids write to Santa every year, and no one ever puts an address on. So they've just got this big backlog of letters to Santa. They get one for Santa addressed to the courthouse. So this mail clerk, who doesn't even know about this story but hears about it from a friend, because obviously this is the 40s and they didn't have like TV and 24-hour news coverage. So he hears about this thing that's going on, this court case with Santa, and because he asks, like, why is it addressed to the courthouse, and decides to deliver all of the letters to the courthouse for Santa, which gives the judge his out, because the judge says if the US Postal Service recognize this man as Santa Claus, then this court has to too. And I think that's a way more satisfying conclusion, because it's the children that have saved him. To me, that's way more satisfying than a judge finding a $1 note and making a weird speech about America's bizarre sort of separation of church and state that doesn't always make sense or doesn't always work. Because they that one nation under God, like, it's fucking religion is hypocritically weaved through so much of their government also. But anyway, my point is, I think that's a better solution. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it is way better than what this movie does. Because I do think one of my bigger issues, I think it's twofold. If I was to try and put my finger on it, and I still don't know the answer, and I'm hoping we can, through this discussion, figure it out, but I think it's twofold. One, I think that it slows the pace of the movie right down to just be locked in a courtroom for the third act. And I think the ending of that courtroom stuff is not satisfying, in my opinion. So I think you don't even have a catharsis of a satisfying conclusion to that. That's my best guess at what goes wrong in the end of this movie. But yeah, the third act is kind of broken, and it is not helped by the fact that obviously the house stuff isn't my favorite scene in the movie, because it just feels very contrived and convenient in a way that I didn't find particularly satisfying. But if you believe in the magic of Santa, then
I was going to say, no, if you think he's Santa.
Yeah, if you think he's Santa, then it's not contrived at all. It's the magic of Christmas. So equally, your issue with the character arc that changes depending on your read of the movie, that also creates, if you believe the other way, then it creates a problem with the ending feeling a bit too convenient. But, whatever you want to go. Yeah. Either way. So yeah, that's kind of my overall thoughts. I think it's a good movie, but and potentially close to being a great movie. That third act kind of lets it down, in my opinion, stops it from being like a masterpiece, I think.
Yeah, I think, for me, my read would be that it slows it down, becomes a bit of a courtroom thing. I didn't have as much of a problem with the bill thing. Like, I think, the sentence of, if the government can put faith in God, then as a court, we can put faith in Santa. Like, I think that's fine. I didn't. Yeah, but do you not
think there's a weirdly ironic thing of that being like the one read of that statement could be, well, if we believe in one fictitious thing, we could believe in another fictitious thing.
Yeah, and again, so much of what we've said, and I hate to use a term that points to only one thing that does this, but you can just imagine the ding on CinemaSins with that. Do you know what I mean? And so much of what we said for me goes back to that thing of if you scratch, like you can imagine, like you can just, oh man, the scene, they go way too far in the scene where the sacked Santa accuses, like this is a children's Christmas movie, and we've got Santa being accused of being a paedophile, like quite overtly. Like it's madness. Like, and again, you can imagine, dings there. Like,
the other thing, I guess, as well, like from a character perspective, is like I feel like somebody who believes he's Santa, like, and that's their read of the movie, would maybe potentially, and I'm only saying potentially because I don't know, because that wasn't my read of the movie, but I could see somebody who sees it that way being a bit surprised by the movie's depiction of Santa being quick to anger. Is fair, or maybe just like very easily provoked. I mean, he grabs his cane in the store, but resists because of the children, but then ends up hitting him outside of it. And then also in the court case, like the lawyer gives him one piece of advice. He says, "All you got to do, I'll get you through this. Just don't talk unless I tell you to talk." And then like he's like, "I got it, definitely, I understand." And then like the next day in court, he like has like 4 different outbursts where he's like angry and like proving the point. I think if you want to believe this man is Santa, like, what version of Santa is that? Whereas I feel like him being angry like that makes a lot more sense when he's just a normal old man that's trying to maintain the spirit of Christmas.
Mate, I'm not adverse to your read. Like,
I'm not selling you on it.
But I just never, like, I've watched this movie twice in like the last 2 weeks, and I'm honestly tempted to, in December, watch it again with that sort of read in my head. I would love
to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, say that again.
I would love to hear your thoughts on it if that happens, like a little coda.
Yeah.
We can release it as a little bonus.
Yeah, and I'm fascinated because I'll be honest, I'm also sat here going, is it like I've got visions of us finishing this podcast of me being like, Jess, Dan's read on the movie is that he's not actually Santa Claus, and potentially her being like, yeah. Do you think he is? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, maybe it's me. But I don't think there's not many people to ask, because I don't think this is a rewatch movie for most people. And I think, like I say, it was interesting watching it, because I know I've used the term a lot, but I think the movie's biggest strength is, well, I think there's a few strengths. I think the performance is. Yeah. I think it is a very well woven script, despite the things we've talked about. And it's just a really gentle charm, and I think that works on either read. And I think, but looking at it with a critical eye, I do sit there and think, like, we have a child now, and I'm sort of sat there going, what age is best to show them this movie? Yeah. Because I'm just not sure. They've got to be old enough to find it interesting, but I'm just not sure what that point is, or where that point is. And I think that's really interesting. It is. I only know one person who ranks this as their favorite Christmas movie, and I just don't know if that's partly because it's kind of like the audience that this is for is actually quite small. It's the same reason that whilst it was an absolute classic at the time, you don't hear people talking about the other Santa Claus movie. And we watched that at school, and my memory was it took a while to get going. And then I think it did, like, get going, and maybe that was just a young person's attention span. But, point being...
You mean, are you referring to the one from the 80s? Santa Claus the movie?
Maybe. Is it Dudley Moore? Maybe I'm thinking.
Yeah. That's called Santa Claus the movie. Yeah. I remember. That's from like 86, I think, 87. It's shortly before I was born.
And my memory might be completely wrong on that movie, but I just remember. We might have talked about this on the Santa Claus one. I partly remember being pulled into an all-school assembly, told we're watching a Christmas movie in primary school, and everyone being excited because the Santa Claus with Tim Allen had just come out, and there were rumours that it was going to be the Santa Claus, and everyone was really excited, and then it starts and everyone was just like, "What the fuck's this? Like, this isn't the movie we thought it was." Yeah. But I think it may be just there's no, and that doesn't need to be at all. But I just, again, when you think about it in the context of it's rare to see a Christmas movie without this. Like, what are the set pieces? Do you know what I mean? Like, what are the sequences? But there is such magic in some of the moments. I mean, a huge obvious candidate to start, chucking some praises. And then we need to talk about the relationship between Dory and the neighbor. But the sequence with the deaf child is just wonderful. It's so heartwarming, and maybe that's it. Do you know what I mean? Maybe that's it. Maybe that's enough, because there's such magic to that scene that maybe, for some children, scenes like that are enough. But again, this movie is also then juxtaposed with a scene where a drunk calls Santa a paedophile. Like, it's a mad movie, really, when you think about it.
Well, to cover a couple points at once, just very quickly, the CinemaSins thing I think is really interesting, and I wanted to respond to that both times, but it was like at the beginning of when you spoke. No. I didn't want to interrupt you to talk about it, and you were making a wider point both times. But with the CinemaSins thing, very quickly, I think it's really interesting because I think, script should be looked at for plot holes and little weird inconsistencies, because sometimes they do take you out of the movie when something seems unlikely or unbelievable. It sort of can affect the believability of the piece, right? I think that's always something you should be looking out for. But one thing I will say, and I think it's something I've learned more strongly, or believe more strongly now, having done this podcast for, 100 and however many episodes of this we've done, 140, 100, how many, where are we up to? Now I'm just curious. Where are we at? 129 for this one. So we've done 129 of these, and one thing that I keep coming back to is this idea that, most movies have inconsistencies like that. Most movies have some, if not lots, of those. The question is, when the movie is good enough, you don't care. If the movie is truly entertaining, you are willing to suspend your disbelief for those little sort of plot holes, little plot speed bumps, as we were coined, a phrase we coined earlier in this podcast, where it's not quite a hole. Like, it doesn't not make sense, but it just seems very unlikely, so it bothers you for a second, because it feels like the writer has forced something to happen to make the story go forward. And I think they're more likely to take you out of a movie you're not enjoying. That's genuinely my belief, right? So you can sit there, with your little CinemaSins dinger and go through any movie and find a ton, I'm sure, absolutely, of these weird small inconsistencies. But I think, generally speaking, while it is important to take as many of those out as you can as a writer, you're never going to be at zero, I think, because, long-form storytelling is always going to have those to some degree. But if the movie is good enough, the audience won't care. They will be swept up in the movie, be willing to suspend their disbelief, and be more likely to go along with it. And I think, in a weird way, that's also true with, like, special effects. No special effect is so photoreal that people won't be able to tell the difference, right? I know when a CGI Spider-Man is flinging between buildings, right? But if the story is good enough, I'm not paying attention to how much weight Spider-Man has when he moves from building to building, because I'm engrossed in the story. And I think there's a truth to that with storytelling and scripts as well. So with the CinemaSins thing, I for sure think there are movies when we've visited Nitpick Corner many times across one film, and that's not valid, but I will say I think it says more about a movie when you notice a lot of them, or they bother you a lot. It says more about the quality of the movie. I think this movie has more nitpicks in it than any movie we've seen in a little while, right? There are tons of little weird inconsistencies I could point out in this movie. Why are we even having a court date? I couldn't even tell you. You're right, the Alice and Janney thing from earlier in the movie, where this one customer is like, "You've made a customer of me for life," and the guy's like, "I've had an idea." Now, I do actually believe this would work, but I find it hard to believe any company would ever be willing to risk it, right? I'm convinced that a company ingratiating itself to its customers by being kind to them will make them more likely to return. I believe that wholeheartedly. I don't believe a corporation whose leadership's jobs are dependent on quarterly earnings will be willing to take that risk. That's where you lose me.
Now,
but,
to be
Go on.
To be fair, just to inject super quickly, the movie does present the "we've got nothing to lose" argument because of the situation that's still in. Yeah,
but I could be totally taken out of the movie by that, thinking about it, wondering about it not working for me, whatever, blah blah blah. Didn't care. Didn't care when I watched it. Genuinely didn't bother me.
Me neither.
Because the movie is really well written elsewhere. Like, it's charming and enjoyable, and it's funny, and it's likable. Like you said, gentle charm. It's really, really enjoyable. It's pleasant to watch, right? And while the third act slowed down to a point where it became less pleasant to watch, which is why a lot of my nitpicks that I really have are actually from the third act, which backs up my overall point. I think, I think they mostly got away with it for that reason. So yeah, I was pleasantly surprised with this movie. I'm gonna go ahead and say that we usually say this at the beginning and we didn't. I'm gonna call this a recommend. I don't think it's a masterpiece by any stretch. I don't quite think it's a Christmas classic, but it is really good, and I think people will enjoy it. If you've not seen this in a long time or you've never seen this movie, you will enjoy it. I truly believe that. Oh, a little tea update, by the way. At some point during all this, Nadia brought me tea. Thank you, Nadia. I don't know if she can hear me, but so yeah. And there was another point I wanted to respond to when you were talking about there as well. What were we talking about in the last section? I latched onto Cinema Sins and then got distracted. What was the last thing you were talking about?
I mentioned the scene with the deaf girl and how there was such magic in some of the movie, some of the moments in the movie.
Yes, perfect. Very quickly then, I 100% agree with you. Moments like that, and in fact, I'd say the first two acts are full of moments like that, which really keep the movie going. And Richard Attenborough's very charming performance really does sort of sell it. But in the original movie, it wasn't a deaf girl. In the original from the 40s, it was a Dutch girl. And it blew everyone's mind that he could speak Dutch. But I guess in a modern age, more people are bilingual. So they didn't think that was as impressive. So they shifted it to the scene with the deaf girl. But it's so sweet and so well. It's one of those scenes where it's like everything comes together at once. It's shot beautifully. It's written beautifully. And it's performed beautifully. Like, everything is on fire for that scene specifically. If you don't have the time to watch this movie, just look up that scene. I'm sure it's on YouTube. Miracle on 34th Street, and then just type the word deaf. I'm sure someone will have posted it. I'm certain. You should watch it. It's a really charming, wonderful little scene. So yeah, and that's one of the reasons you don't notice the bumps. Anyway, you wanted to talk about the relationship, and I'm fascinated because I honestly, a bit like with some of the other things in this movie, very happily just let that happen because it became clear early on that they had some sort of mild pre-existing relationship, right? And so the movie doesn't have to sell me on those two being together. What it has to sell me on is her changing her mind from "no, I won't marry you" to "yes, I will." And I do believe it potentially failed at that because I was a bit surprised that works in the end. But I'm very curious to what you thought about that, Chris.
Oh, no, it was just that discussion. The discussion Jess and I had this year, and I think have had in the past, and I looked it up this year to see what other people thought, was what was their status pre the movie, because they don't explicitly state they've been together, but then he proposes, which is a bold move, to say the least.
I assumed that they had been together. But they'd kind of kept it very light around Susan because she doesn't say when she introduces him, she doesn't say, "Oh, it's my mum's boyfriend" or "It's my mum's fiance." Well, she wouldn't say fiance, but she doesn't describe him that way. She says, I think she literally says "he's my," and then names him Brian. "He's my Brian" or something like that. It's a cute scene.
Yeah, well, I think, and I think they're not in a relationship, but if it's not, I'm aware it's the 23rd of December, so as long as it's not too twee to say at Christmas, I think they've been fucking. That's my big theory, Dan. I think they've been.
So you think this was just a purely sexual relationship, and then he proposed, and she was like, "No, obviously no. What are you talking about?"
I don't think purely sexual, but I think they've definitely had moments, been intimate. I don't think they've ever been boyfriend and girlfriend, but I think they've definitely, because the dialogue, I was watching out for it this second time watching it, but when he proposes, what she says is, have I ever given you any reason to think I wanted to marry you? So she's not saying, have I ever given you any reason to think I want to be in a relationship or that we're together or anything like that. What she is specifically talking about is marriage. And I think, it's kind of, again, I don't know whether it's deliberately ambiguous. It's weird. Like, I think they could have been a couple from the start, and that would have been fine. Like, I don't know why they I don't, in a way.
I don't know if there's as much need for debate on this topic. Like, I think they pretty unambiguously are, because otherwise, no other thing makes his proposal. Every other explanation makes his proposal utterly insane. Like, if they're not some sort of couple, and he just turns around, he's got a ring. Like, that would be madness, no? She's
I know.
She's and you're right. Her dialogue is like, "I've never given you an indication I wanted to marry you," implying to me, at least, that they have been in a relationship, but she's never indicated that she'd be willing to marry because she was hurt previously. That's where I'm at with that relationship. I would put good money that the intention is that they're a couple when the movie starts. That's my feeling.
Yeah. And that's well, like I say, that's my theory as well. But it isn't. The reason it keeps coming up when we watch it is because it's not stated explicitly, and in some ways, I don't really know why it's not. But equally, why has she decided to record? Why isn't she just leaving a note? Like, going to the effort of recording a VHS in 1994 to say I'm next door? Madness, Dan. Like, there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of bad shit in this movie. We should.
Credit to the actors, though. I gotta say, Elizabeth Perkins and Dylan McDermott do sell me on what is. I mean, look. Okay, here's another little like criticism of the movie. I do think a lot of the dialogue is I don't want to say bad, but very stilted and unnatural. Huge swaths of the dialogue feels like first draft dialogue, where a character walks into a room, says, "This is how I'm feeling," and the other character says, "Well, if you're feeling like this, then you should feel like this." There are scenes when the dialogue is actually a lot subtler and way more effective. Usually, it feels like they gave a really close polish to everything Kris Kringle says, but pretty much every other character in the movie talks like a fucking AI, and it is really... It's unnerving, actually. And they all have the exact same voice. They all speak the same way, including Mara Wilson. Now, I know that Susan is supposed to be like a small child that talks like an 80-year-old. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the whole point of her character is that she's sort of wise beyond her years. Not wise beyond her years, but sort of like overage. Like, she's like an adult in a child's body to some degree. But it's just like, it just leans into an existing problem where all the other characters have essentially the same voice on the page. And I found that really off-putting. It didn't work for me. A lot of the dialogue is trite or awkward, and no, I didn't care for it.
A highlight for her being one of her very first scenes where she's like, well, the parade is basically over then, because otherwise it's just people clearing up poop, and I have no interest in that at all. That doesn't intrigue me. It's something like that. It's mad. Like, no child talks that way.
But like, everyone in this movie talks that way. It's such weird, unnatural dialogue. It's like George Lucas wrote it. I don't know, man. It's weird. Like, the dialogue in this movie is often very bad. And look, again, not a big problem, but
I think I'm with you. I absolutely recommend this movie wholeheartedly. I don't think any of this... none of this is a problem, and I think actually the reason we've talked about it so much is because it's interesting. Yes. Like, it's not like it damages the film, but it's intriguing and interesting to talk about. I will say, and like you say, it's often Kris Kringle, but there is the occasional moment of dialogue that is spectacular. In particular... I used to be able to get everything done quickly and then meet the Easter Bunny for tea. He holidays in wherever it is, don't you know? Like, he holidays in New Zealand.
Yeah, it's New Zealand.
Very funny.
It's great. I will say, especially during some of the courtroom stuff, they obviously took some care with what people said there. Like, there's the lie that draws a smile or the truth that draws a tear. Well, actually, you know what? Fuck it. Oh my God. That line confirms he's not Santa.
I can't remember the line. Say it again.
A lie that draws a smile or the truth that draws a tear. The truth is he's not Santa. That would draw a tear for children. Or we commit to the lie, and that will draw a smile. Oh my God, the movie says it explicitly. There you go. He's not Santa. Didn't even think of that.
Wow. Who knew? Who knew that on the 23rd of December, Dan was just going to crush everyone's Christmas spirit?
Oh, what? Not on Christmas Eve, the holiest of days.
I think you've made it. I think you've made it very clear in this podcast and others that you're not too bothered about whether a day's holy or not, Dan.
I'm saying nothing. I did. I got accosted by people recently who were like religious people, and they were like, oh, do you tell you about Jesus or whatever? And I was like, oh no, I'm a very committed atheist. And they were like, so do you want to watch a 3-minute video about our Lord and Savior? And I was like, no, I don't know if you heard that last part, but I'm an atheist. I definitely don't want to watch a 3-minute video about Jesus.
What's also amazing about that is I respect the approach of, oh, well, just watch this quick video. But in today's world, 3 minutes is not a quick video. They want to condense that down into a TikTok site.
Yes, yeah. Give me a TikTok about Jesus. You might convince me with a TikTok about Jesus. Anyway, the last couple of points I think I want to address on the film very quickly then, and it's about. It's the third act. It's always the third act. I'm sorry, but okay. First of all, I struggled with, and we touched on this earlier, but I didn't actually get your opinion on it. I really struggled with, Elizabeth Perkins' character. Was it Dory? I don't know what changed for her between whatever gave you the impression I would marry you, and yeah, let's get married. And I struggled with that. I guess is it to do with like the reason she didn't want to get married wasn't because she didn't love him, but was because of her previous relationship turning to shit, and he proves himself to be a trustworthy guy. Is that it? Have I just realised it in this moment why it works?
I'm gonna try and fansplain it. Please do. And I'm making this up on the spot, but sure. If the read of the film, if the logic of the film is sometimes you got to put your faith in magic, and sometimes you got to believe in magic, then I think because we've got the scene where the neighbour, whose name we should also actually use. Hold on
Brian.
1 second, I've got it here. Brian. Brian and Chris sit down and they make it very clear that it didn't work out with Matilda's with
Susan.
What's it? Susan, with Susan's dad, and that's seemingly left, a lovely, nice woman with trust issues and difficulty trusting people. I think she always has feelings for him. When she turns him down and rejects the proposal, she goes in the elevator, and the first thing she does is cry, like she's upset by the situation. There are looks and all the rest of it. Like, I think there are plenty of signs that she does have feelings for him, and I think if you connect their plot to the wider Santa plot, then the read you could take is she's learnt to believe in a bit of magic, and she's learnt to go, you know what, this thing is amazing. I just need to put in the way that my daughter's put her trust and faith in this man as Santa, I need to put my trust and faith in this man as a husband. So it's not that she ever didn't want to get married, it's that she's essentially chosen to go with her heart over her head. And earlier in the movie, she was going with her head over heart. So it's not that her feelings have changed.
Right. That's what I'm realizing.
Willingness to jump in.
Yes.
Yeah, her willingness to jump into the scenario, her willingness to take a leap because of everything else that's happened in this crazy journey they've been on. That willingness is there.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, I think anyone could get their own version of like why that changes, but there are a few possible explanations I think that make sense. But you're right. It's not that it was never that she didn't love him enough to marry him. It was always she wasn't confident enough to do that after being hurt in the past. So the events of the movie made her confident. Whether it's he proved he can be trusted because he didn't bail on Santa, he like committed to sorting out saving Santa, and he did. You know what I mean? Like he said what he was going to do, and then he did it, and he delivered. Or it could be. I do like your sort of more romantic version of it, where it's just that she had to just trust a little bit and put a little bit of faith in magic or whatever. That's good too. So yeah, I like it. I think that makes sense. You've successfully convinced me that story isn't missing a beat.
Thank you. And look, let's be honest. I mean, she's right. He's an absolute fucking catch. Like, he's great with her daughter. Yep. He's patient. Yep. He's a hunk. Yeah. Like how people talk
Dylan
about
McDermott, famously handsome man. A bit sort of 90s waxy here, which is not his fault. That's how all men looked in that era, but especially on TV and movies. But you take the sort of waxy look about him, which again all men in leading men in movies had in that era. That's a very handsome man, and he continues to be a very handsome man.
Well, yeah, I think people give Paul Rudd a lot of credit for not aging. I think some of that love needs to be chucked Dylan McDermott.
Yeah, he's still really. That's a fucking gorgeous man. That's a handsome man. In some ways, because of the waxy thing, and you're right, because that's how Pierce Brosnan looked in Mrs. Doubtfire, for example. Yeah.
So,
I don't know if it's just. I don't know if it's just. I think it's just the makeup they chose to use in the 90s because of the lighting. I don't know exactly what it is, but for some reason, all leading men in these movies look a little bit like wax figures of themselves, and it's just. And I've never been able to figure out the cause, but that is a definite trend in the 90s.
I would make an argument that you could argue because of that. In some ways, he looks older in this film than he has in other movies.
Yeah, I mean, I mostly think of Dylan McDermott from American Horror Story these days, but obviously that man's done an absolute bunch of stuff. Like I've just flicked to his IMDb. Like he's an actor in 69 things. I mean, what has he not worked on?
Look at his Wikipedia photo, right? I swear down.
My God.
The Wikipedia photo is from 2014, and I swear he looks younger in that than he does in this movie.
He does. Yeah, he does. Yeah, he does.
It's amazing. Look, I've mentioned it a few times, and I don't want to keep bringing it up, but because of how it's been. Sorry, I've just flicked to a screenshot of this movie. He really does look younger in that photo. It's astonishing. Anyway,
same with his IMDb photo as well. By the way, his IMDb photo also that's a much better photo. Anyway, go on.
Whenever I've brought it up, it's always been in between other points, so you've never had a chance to respond to it, and I'm intrigued to see whether this is something where you're like, nah, it didn't bother me. Do you think the former Santa attacking him and the way he attacks him, do you think it needs to be horrendous for the movie to work? Do you think it's not an issue? What's your view? I've referenced a few times the madness of that. What's your view on that?
I would change that if this script landed on my if I'm Hollywood script doctor. And they throw me the script and go, can you just give us a pass? Just a bit of a thing. The two things I'm doing is I'm restoring the original letter ending and I'm changing that scene. I think it has a problem on two fronts. I do think it's just too far for this movie, but also it's like the weird comical element of it clashes with that because so he goes over to him. He basically, without using the word pedophile, but he basically says, "Oh, what are you doing with these kids? You like these kids so much?" Santa clocks him barely on the head with a cane. He goes down, and then he sort of leans up and winks at the camera, like I'm actually okay because this is all part of our evil plan. And it's like Home Alone-esque, and I'm like. The tones mixing in this scene are just madness. I think it should have just been a simple, they put a camera in front of him and expose that he commits to this Santa thing on and off his job and start running it in the press. Is this Santa crazy? So, it ends up getting him sort of semi-committed and that's how we end up in the courtroom. I think do something like that. Not exactly that because that doesn't quite, you'd need to work out the kinks in that premise. But... something where they sort of expose him publicly as being fully committed to the Santa thing outside of his role that starts raising questions about him and leads to our courtroom, rather than this whole insulting him until he tries to hit you with a cane and then pretending you've gone down. I don't know, man. That was all really weird. I didn't like any of that. It was too mixed. The scene itself doesn't work because it's too much of a weird mix of tones. And then for the wider movie, I don't think it's the right choice either. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't work for me.
I think it's also, not only is it a mix of tones for the movie in general, but actually it's a mix of tones for the whole Shoppers Express storyline. Like, I quite like when Shoppers Express is seen earlier than that and introduced, especially when it's like the head of Shoppers Express. It's kind of, it's basically, it's kind of a Bond parody. Like, he's a Bond villain. Like, there's this big empty like fucking office, and like it's all darkly lit and stuff like
he
that.
Might as well be like stroking a cat, twirling a mustache.
He really might as well be. And I think, like, so, but then that scene and that bit is almost like a weird, uncomfortable, gritty drama. And so it clashes with the movie, but also actually it clashes with the almost parody, comical-esque nature of Shoppers Express otherwise.
Yeah. But look, here's the thing, right? I'm still recommending the movie. It's not my favorite Christmas movie. I don't know if I'll necessarily see it again in the next couple of years, but I am pleased I got to see it again. I think on the whole, I enjoyed it, despite a slower, less perfect third act. I think the dialogue isn't great, but I think that the script is so perfectly balanced otherwise that kind of makes up for it. And I like that it can be read multiple ways. I think Richard Attenborough is astounding in this movie, and it sort of makes me think, why, Richard Attenborough was so good. Like, he didn't get to do enough stuff. That's where I landed on this. Like, I wish there were more Richard Attenborough things. I mean, look, having a glance, I mean, he's got 79 credits on his IMDb, so I mean, maybe I do need to just, maybe I'm the problem here. Although some of these look like, Jurassic Park, like voiceover stuff he did later in his career, actually. A lot of this, actually. But, I maybe I should go back and watch more Richard Attenborough stuff, because he's so damn good at this movie. Mara Wilson, one of those very rare child actors that was not at all annoying. Obviously, Dylan McDermott, Elizabeth Perkins, amazing. Even down to, like, James Remar and Jane Levies, who play the sort of two, like, comedic like henchman of the guy that runs the store. Like, they're great too, super fun. It's weird seeing James Remar always in things where he's not telling you to be careful when you murder someone, but he's so good in this. Super fun. I'm gonna go ahead and tell people they should see this movie. It's full of Christmas whimsy and like delightful, and you should watch it.
I think JT Walsh, also the other lawyer, he deserves a shout out too.
Yes,
because he, especially his turn at the end,
it's great.
He plays that beautifully. He plays that really well.
Yeah, no, he 100% does. And also, I always forget the guy who plays the judge. I always forget to. It's like Robert Prosky. Yeah, here it is, Robert Prosky. This guy, I've seen this guy in 100 things. He's always amazing. Like, he's a face I recognize from 2 dozen movies from my childhood. He's in Last Action Hero. He's in Mrs. Doubtfire. I feel like he's in Gremlins maybe, but like he is always good in everything I've ever seen him in. So yeah, give that guy a little shout out too. But yeah, people should watch this movie for sure. It's great.
I think, I know. Take a shot. I'm saying it again. I cannot get over the gentle charm to it, and I think it has some genuine moments of magic. And I think what we've discovered, which I was not expecting, what we've discovered here is that it's also a really interesting film that you can read a few different ways, and is oddly discussion worthy for something that isn't remembered for being that. So
Yeah.
So yeah,
not a Christmas masterpiece, but definitely worth your time. I was pleasantly surprised. I had a much better time watching it than I anticipated. So yeah, let's do the thing.
Yeah, let's triv it up.
I'm gonna give you some trivia. So obviously,
and apparently, I get the impression the emphasis this week is very much on the some.
Yeah, I mean, I tried my best. I found some stuff in the end, but my God, right? No one talks about this fucking movie. I got really excited at one point because I found a book that existed called what's its full title? Let me put it in. There's a book called A Miracle on 34th Street: The Making of a Christmas Classic. It's a book by Jeffrey Paul Thompson, and I was super excited that I was going to have a bunch of juicy information from that book. But that book, well, this will surprise no one, is on the 1947 original of the movie and was published after the remake, so has some mentions of the remake, but is not about the remake. So maybe we watched the wrong version of this movie. Maybe that's the problem. But anyway, let's tackle it.
Yes, but we very much were true to the kind of, like you say, the 90s, our childhood. Yeah, maybe one day we'll do the 1947 one, but probably not, because it's a very similar movie by all accounts.
Yeah. But, it might be interesting to see. A couple of years, maybe we'll come back to it. Maybe we'll run out of Christmas movies we care about. Anyway, so this movie's journey to existing sort of starts in the 80s, because like in 87, 88, they attempted to make the movie a remake. And they had a guy called Neil Cuthbert writing the script. But it didn't quite get made. It was deemed... It had too narrow a box office window, which I think as a sentence we should keep in mind, because I think that's actually really interesting. They clearly didn't think it had a big enough appeal to invest the sort of money that you invest to make a movie into. But in November 1993, John Hughes sticks his oar in. John Hughes, clearly a fan of the original, basically, and wanted to write and produce a remake of the film. Goes to 20th Century Fox. I think he already worked with them on a few things as well. And they announce in November 1993 that he's going to write and produce this remake for them. Now, Hughes said in that book I mentioned earlier, Miracle on 34th Street, The Making of a Christmas Classic, by Jeffrey Paul Thompson, he said that the reason he chose to do the remake was because he wanted to explore the concept of Kris Kringle from a sort of modern perspective, but he was also aware he was obviously having to handle such a cherished classic. But he was excited at the idea of that, so that's why he kind of wanted to do it. Now, Richard Attenborough actually said to a Variety in 1994 that the earliest drafts of this script that he saw, Susan was written as a boy, which would have changed the movie quite a lot, because the Susan character was definitely a girl in the original too. So I think that's an interesting change. I'm not sure what that was. Maybe because was he thinking of Macaulay? Do you think maybe for a minute?
Maybe that would make sense, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because I can't think of why else. What script reason would you change the gender of that character? I can't think of one.
No, I don't think. I think it works better as a girl, but I can't put my finger on why. And the only thing I can think of is maybe there's a lot to the relationship between her and her mother, and the notion of these two people that got abandoned kind of forming a really tight unit. So maybe in that sense it makes sense for it to be a girl, just because I think that's the movie has to do a lot. If you're able to concentrate on it, you could do that with a boy, no problem at all. But I think there's a shorthand with it being a mother and daughter that you can do. Does that make sense?
I agree. But I do. My only thinking is just that he had an actor in mind, maybe, because to be fair, Macaulay Culkin in Home Alone reads a lot of lines that would be the sorts of sentences said by an adult, but he sort of delivers them as a child, and that's kind of funny. So maybe that's what he was thinking. And obviously Home Alone 2 is 92 and this is 94. So Macaulay would have been only maybe a year or so older when they filmed this than he was in Home Alone 2. So I still think he would have been in the age range to play this character, or a version of this character. But anyway, I can sort of imagine a version of that. Anyway, that's just speculation. There's no evidence of that. We just know that it was originally written that way, based on the Richard Attenborough quote. Anyway, so a month after they announced that John Hughes is working on the movie, they hire Les Mayfield to direct. I did look up what else he directed, but for some reason I didn't write it down. He ultimately went and directed Flubber. And Blue Streak. Nice. I love Blue Streak. Well, okay, let me rephrase that. I loved Blue Streak. Martin Lawrence film, sort of comedy drama, crime comedy film. His first movie was Encino Man. Oh my god! Oh my god!
We're blatantly. I don't know anything about Blue Streak, but I can't see how we don't get to Flubber eventually.
Blue Streak's one of those really fun movies that I just sort of found by accident as a kid and really enjoyed. It's something like a buddy cop movie. But yeah, he's like a jewel thief. And like he hides a jewel in like an abandoned building, but then he gets caught and goes to prison. And then he comes out of prison like years later, and the building he hid his diamond in is now a police station.
Oh wow.
Super fun
That's
movie.
cool. That's a fun premise.
Yeah, it's a fun premise. Martin Lawrence is great in it as well. Blue Streak's a great little movie. Huh. Anyway, so this director takes on the project. He was actually supposed to work with Fox previously on Baby's Day Out, but that didn't end up working out because of a contract issue. And for those who don't know, weirdly, Baby's Day Out also written by another John Hughes produced and maybe written by movie Baby's Day Out. So just some alternate castings I've got here. Kyle MacLachlan, Alec Baldwin, Matthew Broderick, Charlie Sheen, Tom Cruise, and John Travolta were all considered for the role of Brian Bedford, or as Chris has known him for most of this podcast, the neighbor. I'm going to say a bold thing here, Chris, and I don't think any of them would have been as good. Not one.
No.
I think Dylan McDermott's the guy.
Movie. I'd go as far to say the whole movie. I think the whole movie's cast perfectly, even down to Alison Janney. Like she does so much with that one small scene. So yeah.
Look, and that is not. I'm a huge Kyle MacLachlan fan. I love Matthew Broderick from that era. Same with Travolta, but Alec Baldwin's a master as well. But no, it's not going to happen. I could have maybe been a little bit swayed more on
because. Yeah, sorry, go on.
No, finish it. No, I was going to move us on, so you can.
Well, just thinking about like Alec Baldwin in particular, for example, I think there has to be such. I'm not saying Alec Baldwin couldn't have done it, but the role requires such an earnest approach. Like there has to be no hint of sarcasm or wit, and obviously there are Alec Baldwin roles that lend itself to that I've not seen presumably, but it's hard to imagine those guys playing it as earnestly as Dylan does.
I agree. Yeah, I'd be very reluctant to recast that role or go to another timeline where someone else got that role, but I slightly more could be convinced on Dory. Now I think Elizabeth Perkins is amazing in this movie. Right, but I will say, and this is, I guess, the closest I'm going to come to criticizing any of the performances in this movie, I don't think she's doing anything particularly unique. She's given a very, very sort of down-the-line role and delivers it perfectly, and she has good chemistry with Dylan McDermott, which is all you could possibly ask for, and obviously good chemistry with Mara Wilson. So I think Elizabeth Perkins does an amazing job of this movie. But there are also lots of other actresses from that era that could have taken on that role and probably would have been about as good. So I guess what I'm saying here is I don't think you can change Dylan McDermott because I think he really is doing something that only he could do. I believe that while Elizabeth Perkins is doing an amazing performance, I do believe there are other actors from this era that could have done something similar. But the three names that are out there, and I'll be curious to hear your thoughts on this. There's one particular one that I went, ooh, maybe. Julia Roberts, Catherine O'Hara, and Gina Davis. What do you think, Chris?
Catherine O'Hara is the one that strikes me as maybe she could have done it. Is that your one? Or
no, mine was Gina Davis. Because I think with Catherine O'Hara, she's got the same problem as Alec Baldwin. I feel like I love Catherine O'Hara, but she has got a bit of like wit and like sarcasm and insincerity to like a lot of her performances on purpose. And I'm sure she's capable of dialing that back for this role. But I feel like specifically the way this role is written, I feel like Gina Davis would have done a really good job of presenting this character. But then again, the character has a coldness that Elizabeth Perkins displays that actually I'm wondering, maybe Gina Davis has too much warmth to what she does. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I've been wrong about this all along.
The reason Gina Davis, I think, strikes you is also like just like visually, like you can really imagine her being her mum, like that really works.
I didn't even think of that, but yeah, I didn't consciously think of that, but that's possibly part of it too. Yeah, for sure.
But I agree with you on the sternness that Elizabeth Perkins brings. I think, I'd still ultimately choose Elizabeth Perkins.
Yeah. I think I would too on reflection, but again, Gina Davis, one of my absolute faves. So I'm always up for putting Gina Davis in a movie or seeing a movie with Gina Davis in. There was only one other name I could find that's been confirmed to have been in contention for the Kris Kringle, other than Richard Attenborough, and that's Sean Connery. Now, I love Sean Connery. I think he's a master. That's horrible casting. I truly believe that's dreadful casting.
I think there's a twinkle in his eye, but again, I just think it's the wrong. I don't in the way that I think Dylan has an earnestness that the others wouldn't. I think Richard Attenborough has a gentleness that Sean Connery wouldn't.
Correct. That's exactly right. Yeah, that's look. They made the right choice. You can't criticize a movie for avoiding a bad decision, but it's crazy to me he was considered, because that is all wrong in my opinion. And again, not a dig at Sean Connery as an actor, just wrong for that role in my opinion.
I also think there's truth as well, and you can't be two icons. Do you know what I mean? You can't be James Bond and Santa Claus.
Is that just one of those unwritten rules?
I think so, yeah. In the same way that you couldn't, I think Daniel Radcliffe before, when he's been asked about things like Doctor Who or Bond, he's been like, I can't be Harry Potter and, one of those guys. Like,
I reckon this is starting my campaign for, as he gets a little older, let's get Daniel Craig in to play Santa. That's what I want to see now. Give him a beard.
You know what, that could work. You know what, that could work. Yeah, actually, I can. Of all the Bonds still alive, I
could
think
play Santa.
You know what? I think I could see Pierce Brosnan doing it as well. Maybe I'm completely wrong.
Yeah, all those iconic characters like Harry Potter, Doctor Who, James Bond, and Santa Claus. Anyway,
I'm starting the campaign now to get Daniel Radcliffe as Santa Claus.
Oh man, we definitely need someone called Daniel playing Santa. That's what we need. I'll put my hat in the ring while I'm here.
That's one of those things that, like, just, if someone was like, and that's all you'd need to say. If I turned around to you, I gave you no other context, I was just like, oh, Daniel Radcliffe is playing Santa Claus in a new movie, you would be like, well, I'm seeing that.
I'm seeing that opening day is what. Anyway, let's get through these. We've got a few more. So let's get to production. So despite the New York setting, the movie was mostly shot in Chicago, doubling as New York. You know what? I'm going to be honest with you. I think sometimes you can tell. Just sometimes. There are scenes when it doesn't feel as New Yorky as it should, and when I was watching it, I couldn't put my finger on it. Because I always associate this movie as like a New York movie. Obviously, the whole Macy's Kohl's thing, the whole it's that whole situation. I see it as a New York movie, but yeah, when you're watching it and you're looking at some of the streets and stuff, you're a bit like, it doesn't quite look like New York. And yeah, it turns out Chicago. The deaf girl, Samantha Krieger, was the actress. She's actually deaf. And Richard Attenborough asked for her to not be rehearsed or told that he would sign. So she was basically told that it was going to be a scene where she communicated with Santa, non-verbally, but was not told he was going to sign at her. So the surprised look on her face when he does is genuine. And if that doesn't make your heart grow 3 sizes, then I don't know what will. Because I think that's adorable to hear.
One thing, I can't believe I'm going to do this, but one thing I would say about that scene, though, I did want a shot of the mum. I wanted a shot of her mum, reaction. Being like, oh, wow, he's talking to her or something. But it's a wonderful scene. Arguably, it's the best scene of the movie. It's fantastic.
Yeah. And it's on, I've just double-checked, because I said it would be earlier. It is on YouTube in its entirety. Sorry, all 2 minutes of it on a YouTube account called Chomp Chomp Nom Nom. So it's called Miracle.
Who'd have thought?
It's called Miracle.
Who'd have thought both? Yeah, go on.
No, I was going to finish. You say what you say.
I said, who'd have thought that both Chomp Chomp Nom Nom and Collins Street Bakery would get shout-outs this week?
So it's the full video's title is Miracle on 34th Street brackets 1994 Deaf Girl Scene HD. So there you go. It's a good scene. You should watch it. Delightful stuff. Right, what was I was at my triff. Okay. Director of photography decided to put a light above each actor and actress's heads during all the shots to give a distinct glow behind them, because this was popular as a way of lighting movies in the 40s. This helped give the movie a warm feel, but also a classic feel, and sort of combined the deliberately anachronistic costumes and camera angles. We haven't really talked about that, but I will say, just from a purely like visual perspective, the movie's really wonderfully shot. Like, they clearly made a choice to shoot it like a sort of classic film and light it like one too. And the costumes are amazing. It's weird because it's 1994, but yeah, as was pointed out in that piece of trivia, they're all dressed like they're from the 40s, particularly our Kris Kringle. So I thought that was really wonderful. I don't know. I just thought that was we haven't really given the movie, because I mean, it is shot quite simply as a result of that choice. But it is, brilliant. Good work. Good
Absolutely.
work. Let's see. Brian Bedford is the only main character whose name was changed between the original and this, for no real reason that I could tell. So the character was called Fred Gailey in the original, and they renamed him Brian Bedford. I mean, Bedford is the town in It's a Wonderful Life is Bedford Falls, so I guess they're trying to allude to that.
I think Brian's a sexier name than Fred as well, isn't it?
Sure, that's true. Dylan McDermott can't be a Fred. The only other name change, but it's much subtler.
He could be a Frederick.
Yeah, there you go. A name we are too familiar with. Mrs. Walker, as she is known mostly in the movie, they made a slight alteration to her name, but it's not a full change. In the original, it was Doris, and now it's Dory. I guess because Doris has become synonymous as like an old lady name in the sort of 90s and 2000s. So I guess they updated that to make her not seem older. The doorman, Alvin Greenman, he played Alfred in the original 1947 version. So they had one of the cast show up in this one. I think that's charming. Good choice. I always like it when when you do a remake and you bring back one of the original cast in a new role, just to give them, like, they can pop up and fans can be like, that's the guy. This one's fun. The Bee Gees recorded a song for this movie, Chris. It was to be the title song for the soundtrack. Fox rejected it.
Yeah. Like, was it like a disco fucking... I suppose maybe something like Words, but that's not what you imagine, is it? You imagine Miracle on 34th Street.
So, I mean, anyone who wants to check it out can, because ultimately...
Is he Santa? Yeah! Like...
Well, ultimately, the Bee Gees did release the song on an album a few years later, like 3 years later, I think, like 97. They had an album called Still Waters, and they put the song on it as just a normal song. It was called Miracles Happen. So if you want to hear the song that was supposed to be the title track for this movie, but ended up just being chucked out because Fox wanted to use old Christmas songs for the soundtrack instead, which is so funny to me. Like, imagine you're the Bee Gees. I mean, the Bee Gees, right? One of the most successful acts of the decade leading up to this, right? Like, we're talking like the 80s and early 90s. I mean, you couldn't have... I don't know if there are many acts that were as popular or had the record sales behind them as the Bee Gees will have done at this exact moment in time. And Fox come to you and like, we need a song for our movie. They're like, of course, and they pay through the nose for it, no doubt, because there's no way the Bee Gees were like, yeah, give us $100 and we'll be on our way. Like, obviously that was an expensive endeavor. The Bee Gees write you a song, they give it to you, and you go, we're gonna go with something else. Oh, okay. Have you got like a different band, like a more modern band, maybe like a more popular band to do a song? No, we're just gonna use some more Christmas music. It's a bit like, what? Should have thought. Yeah, should have thought of that to start with.
Especially because they've done Saturday Night Fever at this point. So surely it could have been a genuine marketing thing of the Beatles are back on the soundtrack to a movie. Like,
the Bee Gees. You said Beatles that time.
Sorry, the Bee Gees. Yeah. Sorry, the Bee Gees are back on the soundtrack to a movie.
I guess the thing is, right, my one of my things is, I will say this. Obviously, Saturday Night Fever is like 77. So we are talking like 1994. So how many years have passed? Like 20 years have passed, or just shy of 20 years. Maybe the feeling was just like they'd had their moment and maybe it wasn't going to be as big of a selling point. I haven't done it yet, but after this podcast, I am going to check out that song and just see what it's like because I'm so curious.
Oh mate, I've already loaded it up on YouTube. That's the first thing I'm doing when we finish this.
So let's quickly talk about the Macy's situation. So the original movie set in, totally endorsed by Macy's, the big department store in New York. Well, they're everywhere, I think, but the Macy's in New York is the big one. They're the one that run the big Thanksgiving Day parade. That's sort of the start of the Christmas period in New York. I've been to the Macy's Day Parade, and it is a wonderful, wonderful parade. It's very fun. A very famous thing. Now, they were a huge part of the original movie. Now, they declined the offer for their name to be used in this movie on the account that they felt the original stands on its own and could not be improved upon. Now, that sounds reasonable until you discover that they also allowed their name to be used in 3 prior remakes in 1955, 1959, and 1973. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say it probably wasn't for the reasons they have said. Because if you truly believe the original stands on its own and could not be improved on, maybe don't greenlight 3 other remakes first. Or greenlight the use of your name.
Fair, what were those? What were those remakes though? To be fair, like, you know, if they're not remaking as iconic a movie, maybe.
No, remakes of Miracle on 34th Street.
Oh, specifically remakes of right? Okay, fine. What other remakes have there been then of Miracle on 34th Street?
So there's 4 in total, including this one. So there's a 55, 59, and 73. I think some of those might be TV remakes. I'm not sure.
Oh, but in that case, I thought you meant just remakes generally, right? In that case, yes, that's utter madness.
Yeah. So there are officially like 5 versions of this story you can see. So there's the original from 47, and then there was a remake in 55, then again in 59, which seems really soon, only 4 years later. Then 73, and then obviously the one in 94. We're due for another remake based on the way this goes. So obviously this led to Go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, A Star Is Born. Like, I can absolutely see it happening.
Yeah, true. Yeah. So this led to the production creating a fictitious Kohl's store as its replacement. Which wasn't, very removed from Macy's. They have the Kohl's parade. It starts at 77th Street in Central Park West, which is exactly the starting point for the Macy's Day Parade. They had the Kohl's logo on a big star, which is the first balloon of the Macy's Day Parade, which is the Macy's logo on a big star. And it's obviously on 34th Street, which is where Macy's is. So, yeah. Anyway, Elizabeth Perkins and cinematographer Julio McCatt met on the set of this movie and ended up getting married in the year 2000. So they started dating here, got married a few years later in 2006 years later. Yeah, very good. Good for them. So, box office. Let's just quickly, I'll try and get through this as quick as I can, because this is interesting, but I don't know how much detail we want to go into. But basically, 20th Century Fox had planned to give this movie a small 800 screen release, which in America is very small. I think a full release is like 3,000 screens, I think. So 800 screens is very small. But then they had a test screening where it received a 100% score, which is perfect and never happens. And they were instilled with so much confidence, they immediately tripled the marketing budget, gave it a full, wide release, and offered a full refund to any viewer who did not enjoy the movie. Not smart.
Say that again. They full refund to any cinema.
No, to any customer, viewer of the movie that did not enjoy it.
I mean, that's insanity, right?
Seems it. Now, the information I was able to gather is that roughly 1,500 people took them up on this offer. I'm assuming they made it a bit difficult to do. You had to send a letter to a particular address, and 3 months later they send you, a coupon and some cash. I don't know how it exactly worked, but what a fucking nightmare to arrange. This all completely backfired, and it collapsed in the crowded 1994 holiday movie slate. Notably, suffered to The Santa Claus, which came out the same Christmas.
Yes, because the Santa Claus wasn't dishing out refunds.
Well, that doesn't help.
I bet a lot of those. I bet a lot of those people did enjoy the movie. They were just opportunistic.
Yeah.
Like, that's madness.
That's a fair point. Yeah, it seems like an absolutely insane marketing strategy. I guess their logic is a few hundred or maybe even a few thousand people will take them up on that, either opportunistically or maybe because they didn't like the movie. But them putting it in the press, this is how confident we are, in their eyes, will have sold enough or more tickets to make up for that. Because it's a bold claim. If a studio said that today, I'd be like, my God, this must be the greatest movie of all time, because that is such a risky move. But yeah. Anyway, I could not find any reputable source willing to list a budget for this movie. And that is a first for this podcast. I found budgets for movies made in the 40s and 50s. I found
movies like the Parole Officer, like small UK releases.
I managed to track down a budget for something like The Wizard of Oz or It's a Wonderful Life, and I know this isn't a classic like those, but like it's crazy to me that a movie made in 1994 doesn't have any listed budget on any source from any source that is particularly credible. Now, the number that gets bandied about a lot online when you do look it up, but just not from reliable sources, so take this with a pinch of salt, is 14.5 million for the production. But we are aware of the fact that they tripled the marketing budget. So, if 14.5 million is the production budget and they tripled the marketing is usually the movie's production budget again, we can assume they spent somewhere in the region of $50 to $60 million making and promoting this movie. Would you like to know what the final worldwide gross was, Chris? 46 million. Close to breaking even, maybe.
I was going to say, so it sort of broke even, potentially.
Yeah, but you got to keep in mind that gross, that 46 million, that's split because they got to give the cinema chains money. So, I don't know how much money they made on this originally. Look, I think it's probably made its money back now, as most movies end up doing in the long run. Well, that's why box office stuff is sometimes a bit of a scam, because we can talk about how much money did a movie make versus its budget. But actually, yeah. But then that movie exists and continues to make money for the studio in perpetuity on streaming, VHS, video, depending on what era the movie is from. There's always more money to be made. And contrary to popular belief, that hasn't gone away. I love that clip of Matt Damon. I think it's Matt Damon going, we can't make movies like we used to make, because back in the day you make a movie and you could afford to not make it all on the weekend box office because, you had the VHS, the DVD coming behind you to bring in more money. Psst, Mr. Damon, they still have that. It's called streaming and on demand. It's just they fucked you on the contracts. When new forms of money, revenue streams came out, they very cleverly did not put them in your contract. So you don't get money for streaming because the studios bent you over and fucking stole your wallet while they fucked you. That's not anyone's problem but the industry, right? Like, we have, you talk to your fucking lawyers. That's anyway, if you don't think they're still making money from movies just because DVD sales aren't a thing anymore, you're out of your fucking mind. Because they sell that movie to Netflix, they sell that movie on Amazon for $4 for a 24-hour or 48-hour rental or whatever, and on iTunes. You don't think that money's going somewhere? What are you talking about? Anyway, it doesn't matter. I hate that clip.
They're still making shit. They're still making money on shit that has already been on DVD. Like, I know it's a TV show, but didn't Netflix pay like $500 million or something for Seinfeld rights? Like, yeah, there's money to be made.
Definitely money to be made. So, I'm sorry, but that's just because you're not seeing that money doesn't mean the studio aren't drawing it in. And it's not that the landscape changed. It's that the landscape changed and the studios forgot to tell you about it. So they took all your money. Yeah. Oh yes,
or
streaming.
Deliberately decided not to mention.
I'm definitely implying deliberately. Yeah, forgot goes in quote marks. Okay, last little bit. Cars exist. Very good, thank you, Chris. I feel like since you've gotten into F1, your car noises get better. They've gotten better. I think you do a good car.
Yeah, that's
you
possible.
You always did a good car noise, but I think it's gotten. It's a little more accurate now. I think.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable, and that will be next time someone moans at me for not driving as much as I should. I'm going to be like, well, I do a really good car noise for Cars Exists, so.
Perfect. So the car Santa is driven home in, when they pick him up to sort of like coax him, like sort of convince him to come over to the other side, is a Lincoln Town Car stretch limousine. It's the only major car featured in the movie in a prominent way. But we do have a golf cart, so golf carts exist. So the golf cart used at the beginning of the movie by Dory to get around the parade is called an Easy Go Marathon, which I just wanted to say. That's the only reason I included that. So there you go. That's everything for this for the trivia.
You know, that's another ding, isn't it? Like, the limousine is quite an extravagant car to pick up an old man from a petting zoo.
I would agree. I'm trying to move on because I've just realised we're very close to our hard out, so I need to move us on.
That's all right. I've already messaged them to say I'll be a little bit late. So, but yeah.
So with that all in mind, I'm regretting us taking 5-10 minutes to get started because I was so convinced this movie would take an hour and a half to review, which is always famous last words. But okay, very quickly, let's just cover it. Next week, it's New Year's, right? It's going to be, what's the exact date? Let me check. It's my choice, and it's going to be the 30th of December. So,
before Dan says the choice, I'll tease it if we've not said it. I think this is a first for the. Oh no, it's not a first. Sorry, never mind. I thought it was a first for the podcast, but I don't think it is. Carry
on. Is this because it's technically a TV movie?
Yes, but presumably the Snowman is also technically a TV movie. So.
Yeah. I thought the same thing. I did exactly what you did, where when I first raised the premise of this, I went, "Oh, it'll be the first time we are." No, it won't be. I did exactly what you said. But we're doing what 1996's, 1997's Doctor Who the movie, which was a sort of ill-fated attempt to revive Doctor Who. With Paul McGann in the States in 96. And
96, yeah.
Yeah. Perfect, good. Yeah, it was 96, 97. I couldn't quite place it. I've not seen it in a long time. But it's one of my first things that I was ever exposed to that's Doctor Who related. So we'll talk about that next week. I'm excited about it. I'm excited to revisit that, considering how long ago it was, and is it any good? And I'm hoping the trivia won't be too intense on that. Well, I didn't think about that, but yeah, we'll be covering that next time.
I reckon there's a chance it might be, isn't there?
Yeah, it hadn't occurred to me that might be a potentially big one. Is there even an IMDb page for it?
Yeah, there's bound to be.
Is there? Oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah, because there's IMDb pages for individual episodes of TV shows. So.
Yeah. I've just found it. I found it. Let's have a glance. Actually, no, we'll get out of here. But yeah, that's what we're going to cover next week. I'm excited about it. I was a big fan of that movie when I was a kid. I have no idea if it holds up, but that is. Oh my god, yes. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no, okay, no, it's medium. It's medium on trivia. It's medium. It looks long at a glance, but like actually no, that's about in the middle for a rewind review trivia. Anyway, thanks everyone for listening. We're going to come back and do that on New Year's. I hope you're all interested and excited about that as I am. And then after that, we've already talked about it, but let's promote it now. Austin Powers trilogy. Through January.
Yes.
So the 6th, 13th, and 20th of January, we're going to be covering International Man of Mystery, Spy Who Shagged Me, and Goldmember. With that in mind, that's everything for this week. I'm going to hand over to Chris because he ends this thing.
My name's Chris Billingham.
My name's Dan Doolin.
And this review has been rewound.